Carson Wentz has been traded to the Colts in exchange for a third-round pick this year and a conditional 2022 pick next year that can become a first-round pick. To give us more insight on this, Rob Maaddi's done a great job covering the Eagles and Carson Wentz's career, his entire career in Philadelphia from the Associated Press, and he is now with us live on 97.3 ESPN, and, of course, if you're watching on 97.3 ESPN.com. Rob, welcome back, man. How you been?
I'm doing great, man. I am so glad that we are finally finished with the constant Wentz watch and this drama. It's over, man. It's finally over.
It is over, and I know a lot of people want to know kind of how did it get to this point today when they finally pulled the trigger. There was a report that it took 19 days of going back and forth and that today was the day. Why today, the day?
I think the team really wanted to, as they continue to look forward and approach the opening of the league season, March 17, that they got to figure out what they're going to do with their salary cap and what the situation is going to be like. And this isn't a significant cap hit. It's a historic cap hit, $33.8 million that they're going to have to take on for 2021. Ironically, today, I found out that the league had they'd increased the floor for the salary cap by $5 million. So it's at minimum going to be 180. It could be more. We'll find out more from the league, but the Eagles are taking on a significant hit for that. And I think it reached a point where they knew they had to get something done. They knew which teams were interested and which teams weren't. There's been a lot of rumors. There's been a lot of speculation. There's been a lot that's been put out there that just is nonsense. Some stuff that's been put out there that's just to drive up the market and to see what the best offer can be. And I think initially, from the beginning, when I talked to people, they thought that, hey, Carson Wentz is worth a late first-round pick. So what the Eagles eventually got was a third-round pick and a pick that can translate into a late first-round pick. Now, of course, Indianapolis Colts were really smart. They were wise. They put a condition on it. If he comes in next year and he just bombs out or he's hurt and he doesn't play 70% of snaps and they don't go to playoffs or 75% of snaps regardless of playoffs, it stays as a 2, not a first-round pick.
So I guess in the end, did Howie Roseman, knowing the situation, it seemed, Rob, there was only one team that had interest here. You may know more on that, but if there was only one team, did he get fair compensation for the position that he was put in?
Listen, I'm an equal opportunity basher of the Eagles front office, but I think in this particular case here, they did the best they could given the circumstances because this was a difficult situation. You had a guy coming off the worst season of his career. It's not like Carson Wentz was a Pro Bowl player. There's legitimate concern. Do you know if he's going to go back to 2017 form or even December 2019 form, or is he going to be more of the guy we saw in 2020? So given the fact that the contract is astronomical, the 4 years, 128 kicks in this year, and because of the compensation, I mean, they look at a trade like Matthew Stafford, they go, well, in totality of his career, Carson Wentz, you can make the argument that he's better than Matthew Stafford. You could make that argument, right? And Matthew Stafford brings in a haul, so they're going to aim for the stars. And I really think they were put in a situation where not that many teams are going to make those kind of offers. And they certainly didn't get that kind of offer for Carson Wentz. So given that, I don't know how you can really kill the Eagles over the actual trade, guys, the actual trade. But what got to this point, how we got here, why it dissolved to this, why Doug Peterson's out the door, why the team is 4-11-1, why you're trading the franchise quarterback, yes, that's all on the organization.
Based on the upside of Wentz, are you surprised with how many teams were in on him? I mean, the fact that it's Colts, Bears, or maybe more teams that were involved that we didn't hear about, but knowing the upside of him, it's great. And knowing that it's not going to be a Deshaun Watson package, and obviously it's a risk for him, but the upside's so high that it's crazy to me that only one or two teams were really in play.
Yeah, and I don't know that I'm pretty sure the Bears didn't make an actual offer. That's some of the reporting that we got today is that, and I forget who put that out there, but I haven't heard otherwise either. And I think that's pretty accurate. I know this. Carson didn't make a trade demand. Carson did not threaten not to come back to the Eagles if they don't make a trade. So that was kind of blown out of proportion. That never happened. So I'm not certain if there was even an offer 100% on the table from the Bears. Hearing a lot of different people say a lot of different things. So, yeah, given that, what you're saying is it is somewhat surprising because there are teams who need a quarterback. And he does have that upside that you talked about. And if the price was eventually going to be a third-round pick and a conditional first, you would think more teams would get involved. However, maybe those other teams knew, all right, Carson probably has this preference to go to the Indianapolis Colts, to be reunited with Frank Reich, where Press Taylor is. I know Mike Rose there too as well. But Press Taylor and Frank Reich, where he thrived under Frank, that's a preference. Now, it wasn't a demand, but having that preference, I wonder how much maybe that had other teams thinking, well, if that's the case, we would have to overspend for the Eagles to want to do this, but then we might be getting a guy who doesn't want to come here. Then it never got to that point, but I don't know if that was part of it.
Yeah. Now, Rob, you also cover the Phillies as well. So if I know this is pretty hypothetical, but if Howie Roseman said, I'm going to step down for the betterment of this situation, would Carson Wentz want to get out of here as badly?
You put me in a tough spot. if Howie Roseman wasn't the general manager,
if he just stepped down and said,
the personnel boss for the Philadelphia Eagles,
yeah, he said, look, I know that I'm part of the problem. This guy's a good player. I should leave, and you guys keep him, and I'll remove myself.
I think things would have played out differently, Mike.
Okay.
I think things would have played out differently here. Carson Wentz would be here. Doug Peterson would probably be here too.
Yeah. So, I mean, but a lot of people assume that it's that because once Peterson was gone and he still essentially seemed to be unhappy. You said he never asked to be traded, but it seemed like it was pretty clear he didn't want – it's not his first choice to be here, that it had to be somebody else that was still here that was causing the rift. Yeah,
because it was never Doug. Right. And we heard those reports, and I immediately refuted those when they came out in, I guess they were late December, early January. And then when Doug gets fired and then it became, it was Carson or Doug, and Carson wins the power struggle. There was never a power struggle. It was never Carson or Doug. Doug himself told me, hey, we got along just fine. I wanted him to be the starting quarterback. I thought that we can get him back on track. So this was never a Carson versus Doug thing. And the issues that Carson has had with the organization, the distrust that he has with the organization, there are a lot of reasons, several factors, many of them, guys, that have been unreported. And one of those that has been reported, that has been talked about, is the obvious one with Jalen Hurts and the fact that they drafted Jalen Hurts and brought in what appeared to be making him having a guy here who's going to be competition, who's going to be looking over his shoulder after you just gave him a $128 million contract. So that one for sure, that one's out there. There's been several other things that have been unreported.
Do you have any idea what his relationship with Hurts? Did they get along, not get along?
No, they got along. They got along, but it was a difficult year for everybody because you weren't able to congregate together, hang out in a locker room. The quarterback's room wasn't the same as it's always been, all of that stuff. So I think it made for everybody to have different kinds of most of the younger guys, the rookies, weren't able to get in there and really acclimate themselves with their new teammates the same way because of COVID. But Carson never had an issue with Jalen Hurts. And Jalen would tell you that because whenever we asked Jalen after he became the starting quarterback, he's like, Carson's been the same as he's always been over here on the sideline trying to help me, give me pointers and things of that nature.
Speaking of Jalen Hurts, what do you think is the best option for this franchise at the quarterback position moving forward? Should they look in the draft or should they rock and roll with Jalen?
Man, that's a great question. And it's one the Eagles, it's going to be telling because if they go and draft somebody at 6, then they don't know what Jalen Hurts is. This is the way I feel about this, and I've been saying it for about 6 or 7 weeks now. I feel like the best thing you could do as a 4-11-1 team is rebuild with a young quarterback. And I saw enough out of Jalen Hurts to tell me that he's got potential. I love his poise. I love his leadership. I love his character. And I think he's a guy that you can work with. And you have Nick Sirianni in here, who's supposed to be a quarterback-type guru, Brian Johnson, who has known him for a long time. I believe you work with Jalen Hurts and see if he can be that guy, and you don't draft a quarterback at number 6 this year. Because if Jalen isn't that answer, maybe you find out over the course of the next year, but you spent a high pick on him. Let's find out. Let's surround him with more talent. Let's try and build and fill other positions of need rather than go and draft another quarterback and create another quarterback controversy. I saw enough out of Jalen Hurts to make me want to see more. I don't know that the Eagles are sold on him. I don't think they're convinced yet. And you can't really make a determination after 4 games, whether he is the answer or he isn't the answer. But I think bringing a quarterback in with the number 6 pick is not the right way to go. Give Jalen Hurts a year. If he's not the answer, you'll probably be picking in the top 10 next year, and then you can go get your quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. I totally do not want to see a quarterback at that spot. See what Hurts can do, and, they need so many other things fixed. And if he stinks, you have an opportunity possibly with 2 first-round picks next year with that 22nd pick. Now, a lot of people have talked about, yourself included, Rob, that the Eagles didn't feel they had to trade Carson Wentz. He's not a bad guy. He wasn't going to be a malcontent. But does this trade package, and I know you think it's a pretty good deal, suggest that even if we didn't get what we really wanted, it was just best to get him out of here? And I think saying getting him out of here is not the right word, but just letting him move on. Because he wasn't going to be a or would he? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think he would have been a distraction. I don't think he would have been a disruption. He wouldn't have been a malcontent. He wouldn't have complained and whined to the media every day, get me out of here. He hasn't even talked to the media while his character's been assassinated, and he had every right to want to defend himself, and he didn't do that. So they could have brought him back. But I think what this is this signals the Eagles wanting to move forward. You get Carson Wentz off your books for 2022, right? You're looking ahead. You are not going to be a playoff contending team. I don't anticipate them being a playoff team in 2021. I think if they honestly evaluate themselves and look in the mirror, they know they're a little bit away from being a playoff team. What good is keeping Carson Wentz around? You can't go from 4-11-1 to 12-4 with or without him. So I think the best thing for them was to move on, get him off your books for 2022, rebuild with some young guys. You're a young rebuilding team. And the question for me is how many more veteran guys are going to follow Carson out the door now? Because this is the way to go for this team. Like it or not, this has got to be a trust the process kind of situation.
Yikes. The way it was handled by Wentz's team, I guess, his agent and whoever's given him information to not talk. I mean, that doesn't make it look the best, that he has not said one word since he's been benched, really. He never said anything about Doug being fired. He never said anything about the new coach being hired. He hasn't spoken at all. So he's never really given his side of anything here. Are you a little surprised at how he's handled that? And that, I don't know, did somebody tell him not to talk? Are they trying to get him to talk and he doesn't want to?
Well, I'll tell you this. I've asked him to talk, and so me personally, and I've said this before, guys, me personally, my personality is such where if people are going to attack me the way he's been attacked, I would want to put something out there. But then I try and take a step back and try and understand it from Carson's position. What can he possibly say if he spoke to the media? We're going to ask him if he wants out of Philadelphia. Well, you don't want to say you want out because it makes the organization look bad. You don't want to criticize anybody because that's not in his nature. That's not in his character. So he doesn't want to talk bad about the team. He doesn't want to talk bad about anyone. And he doesn't want to say, I want to be gone. So any question we ask him regarding all of those, he would have to lie. That doesn't mean he's not comfortable doing that either. So I think for him, the best case scenario was like, let everybody say whatever they want to say about me. And honestly, guys, I mean, you know my feelings about Carson being a man of faith the same way I am. I know he looks at it like, hey, God knows the truth. I don't have to sit here and defend myself every day against this rumor, that rumor, this accusation, that accusation. Because if you get into that, it'll never end. It'll never stop. So again, me personally, I probably would have said something. I would have put out a statement. I would have done something along those lines. But looking at it from his point of view, anything he would have said to appease people would have had to been either a bending of the truth or just a flat out lie. And that's just not in his nature.
You talked about maybe veteran players following out the door as well. Zach Ertz is a name that has been popped up over the last year or so. What do you think is his value in the trade market?
Man, that's a terrific question. I don't know because, it certainly appears that Zach's on the way out, right? When Zach Ertz is crying, emotional in the last news conference that we had with him, he knows the writing's on the wall. Talked to a lot of people regarding that situation, and it doesn't appear he's going to be coming back. I would have thought a guy like Zach Ertz would be worth a pick somewhere in the 2-3 range, right? Second round, third round pick. He's coming off a bad year. He's 30 years old. Tight ends can play and thrive to be 35, 36. Like, I don't think he's done. You see Gronk come back, and he's played well. Tony Gonzalez played into his late 30s. Antonio Gates played into his late 30s. Tight ends can do that. Zach is determined to do that. So given that, the return should be like a second or third round pick. But right now, I'm not hearing anything close to it. It could change, and especially as you get closer to the draft. Zach could be one of those draft day trades where whether it's sweetener to move up or whether it's something along those, like Howie's very active in and around and at the draft. And I think Zach's future beyond May, he's not going to be here. So I don't know if it's going to happen immediately before the league year starts or closer to the draft.
Yeah, we had John Clayton on yesterday, Rob, and he said the Seahawks would be interested, but they don't have a first or a third. So they would almost have to take a fourth in a deal for Ertz. And, I mean, I don't know if you're just willing to say, we got to clear 8.25 off. Give us the fourth.
He'd be a great fit there, wouldn't he? With Russell Wilson in Seattle. I'll tell you where else he'd look great, but I don't know that they have the salary cap situation to make it happen. Gronk's obviously getting up there in age, man. I'd love to see Zach Ertz down in Tampa catching passes from Tom Brady as he goes for 8 next year, but I don't know that they can make it happen. Probably. There's good to hate. He'd also look good in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers, even though they have a pretty good tight end. So there's a lot of teams that I think Zach Ertz would be a nice fit for. Wouldn't you hate to see him in Dallas?
Yeah.
I don't want to say too much about it, but
Let me ask you this. You covered the team back in Andy's last year, and that team was a mess, 4-12. A lot of offensive line injuries on that team. They fire Andy. They bring Chip in, and the next year they win 10 games. Part of that people forget was, oh, by the way, you got the offensive line all back, and that was a big factor. Next year, you could have Lane Johnson, Brandon Brooks, Jason Kelsey, Isaac Seumalo, and either Dillard or Mailata. Do the Eagles look at that and say, we might be able to be okay with that line coming back?
Well, the big difference, Mike, is in 2013, Chip Kelly came in and invented football. And that's why the Eagles went from 4-12 to 10-6. Now, you can make an argument, man. You can make an argument that's not completely ridiculous that, like you said, the offensive line comes back healthy and intact, right? And let's go a step further. Miles Sanders has a breakout year as a Pro Bowl running back, okay? Jalen Reagor steps up and shows you why he was drafted number 1. Dallas Goedert takes over as tight end number 1 and has a breakout year. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, dare we say.
Now you're going too far. But
you see where I'm going. A lot of ifs, you need a lot of things to fall into place. Can it happen? It's not completely impossible. I don't see it happening.
And I guess the question is, does the organization feel like, hey, if our line in 2012 isn't a mess, we're not as bad as people thought we were. And then the next year they kind of validated that by, hey, look, see, it wasn't that we were so bad. These guys were all hurt. I mean, they lost, 4 of 5 starters, and then they drafted Lane Johnson.
I hope they're not thinking that way. They really got to be honest with themselves. They're a bad football team. They need talent top to bottom. They need to improve on the defensive side. They got a lot of improvement to go on the offensive side. To me, best case scenario, this team's a 6-7 win team, but it's fun to watch.
Okay.
A fun team, an exciting team, a team that's on the rise, on the come. Nick Sirianni steps in. His system, his offense is something that can get Jalen Hurts to be a quarterback of the future. To me, that's a best case scenario. And then you hit on some of the picks that you have in 2021. I don't feel too confident in that happening either.
Rob, when do you think that the sand started to trickle through the hourglass for this relationship?
A little bit of the Jalen Hurts situation, right? When he's drafted, and I think after that, when they start to use Jalen Hurts to put him into the lineup, but there's a lot of things, guys, that has happened that has gone unreported and unnoticed, and there's just a lack of distrust, and this isn't just involving Carson Wentz. There's a lot of players who are former players that I've talked to, some on the coaching staff, who just feel that this is a toxic environment, that there's too much influence from the front office, that there's too much going on. And there's so many different things that have happened, stories that I've heard that I can't even report, that makes it sound like it's a bad fit and it's a bad mix, not just for Carson, but for a lot of people. And it makes me feel like I have serious doubts about how quickly can they rebound if there isn't major organizational changes.
That is disappointing to hear, because it sounded like it was the place to be for a couple of years, right? I mean, 17, 18, even a little bit of 19. It feels like we didn't start getting a lot of this information until things started to get bad.
And that's what happens, right? Things go bad, and now you hear the untold stories. Now you hear what's happening behind the scenes, and everybody's looking for excuses. And, can they win through that? Yeah, I think they can. They didn't. I don't think things were that bad in 18, and I believe they started to deteriorate a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And it's something where Jeffrey Lurie's got to get a hold of his organization. But then there are people who will tell you Jeffrey's part of the problem because he's far too involved for an owner. So if that's the case, you can't fix that problem because that starts at ownership.
Yeah. Real quick, I know you mentioned that you got a lot of veteran players: Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Brandon Brooks, Lane Johnson. Do we anticipate that someone of that magnitude will also need to be a cap casualty, released or not here?
I'd be surprised if somebody wasn't, Mike. At this point, like you have to address the cap. You got enormous cap issues. You have players who've been injured, so there's going to be some restructures for guys they want to keep. There's going to be guys that they flat out move on from. Zach Ertz being the most likely candidate. But I would think that you look at that offensive line, and we still don't know if Jason Kelce wants to come back. He's always constantly, it's been a year-to-year thing. Maybe Jason Kelce decides to retire or move on. I don't know yet. But whether it's Lane Johnson, whether it's Brandon Brooks, whether it's somebody else on the other side of the ball, Malik Jackson for sure, maybe Javon Hargrave, he just signed last year, Brandon Graham going into his last year. Like, I would anticipate some of the bigger name veterans. There's got to be some turnover here.
All right, Rob Maaddi covers the NFL, the Eagles, the Phillies. Anything you can give us on JT Realmuto while you're here?
Yeah, so he says he's going to be fine, right? He said that he got hit in the hand. It's 2 weeks. He's not concerned about it. He's not worried about it. Worst case scenario, maybe he misses a couple games to start the season. But the good news, guys, is it's his throwing hand, so he's still going to be able to catch a lot of these pitchers in bullpen sessions and just toss the ball aside. Somebody else will throw it back to him. So he'll be able to develop a little bit of a rapport with the guys, understand what they have, what they throw, what they like. So I don't think it's a total disaster right now. It's not like a woe is me Philly, like look at all this bad stuff that's happening here. I think that'll be okay.
All right, Rob Maaddi covers the Eagles, Phillies, the NFL for the Associated Press, does a great job. And, of course, he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Rob, good to see you, man.
Hey, as always, man, good to actually see you guys. I like this setup. This is cool.
Yeah, we'll do it more frequently. We'll have you back. Nice coffee. I like to see the coffee there, bros. You had a nice little mug.
Did I see the coffee there? Are you kidding me? I was thinking about making a cup as soon as I saw the mug to the lips.
All right, Rob. Take care, man.
Have a good one.
All right, there goes Rob.